Hello, I'm Susan Goldberg, the Editor-in-Chief of National Geographic. Thank you for inviting me to this and for allowing me to share our family's Detroit story. I'll tell you how that story has inspired me in my work as a journalist. We're in the middle of a divisive moment in our country. We can't seem to agree on anything, including the subject of immigration, and whether we should welcome refugees and others seeking a better life to the United States, or shut the door on newcomers, deport people who've been living and working here for decades, and even banish some who came here as children and have grown up as Americans. When I hear this talk, too often it's irrational, emotional, and not based in facts, and it causes me to reflect on my own birth family's history. My grandparents came from the mold of the familiar but unbelievable story of Eastern European Jewish immigrants to this country. My Bobby, my mother's mother, came from Kupin, Ukraine. My Zeta, my mother's father, from Opato, Poland. My grandmother, my father's mother, came from Bauska, Latvia, and my grandfather, my father's father, from Seta, Lithuania. They all arrived beginning just after the turn of the 20th century and ultimately settled in the immigrant Jewish neighborhoods of Detroit. These neighborhoods were so homogeneous and so segregated that my mother, born in Detroit in 1927, didn't even speak English when she first went to kindergarten, only Yiddish. There's no need to reconstruct the incredible history of my grandparents' generation for this audience. Some of the people hearing this grew up in the households of these amazing men and women. Some are yet another generation or two removed. I worry that the recognition of what these immigrants accomplished will fade precisely because what they did seems like it could not have been done. We may think of it as an exaggeration, but it was not. The circumstances they encountered in America, the prejudice and the potential, captured the entire energy of my grandparents. They were determined to have successful businesses, to educate their children, and for their children to have better lives. They wanted to put their terrible memories of pogroms and Cossacks and poverty and hardship firmly behind them. They would barely talk about any of that. They wanted, above all else, to be Americans. Their ability to achieve what they imagined that looked like remains conspicuous around us. Many of their children, including my parents, became the first people in their family to go to college. They joined the country's professional class, doctors, lawyers, professors. These are my parents, David and Jeanette Goldberg, in the late 1950s, around the time I was born. They were living in Ann Arbor, where my father was a professor and my mother a librarian at the University of Michigan. The grandchildren's generation, me, well, we stand on these generations' remarkable achievements. My grandparents probably would not have understood the concept of diversity as we think about it today. But they understood fairness. They understood tolerance. They understood they couldn't leave their neighborhood in Detroit and buy a house just a few miles away in Grosse Pointe because restrictive covenants would have prevented it. And they understood this was wrong. They taught those values to my parents, who in turn taught them to me. These are the values that helped me be resilient in my career, becoming the first woman leader of 2 metropolitan daily newspapers, a Washington bureau, and now National Geographic. These are the values that have inspired me to create a scholarship fund at my alma mater, Michigan State University. And these are the values that are a hallmark of the work my colleagues and I do every day at National Geographic. We're a 132-year-old institution that has reinvented how we tell stories for the modern age, but we've never forgotten our mission of telling the stories of the human journey to hundreds of millions of readers and viewers around the globe. The Jewish concept of tikkun olam, to repair the world, is embedded in the spirit of National Geographic, which has been devoted since its start to helping people better understand our planet and to help make it a better place. My role in this as editor-in-chief, heading our journalism across platforms, means having the privilege of telling stories that reveal and enlighten, that broaden our horizons, and that can help us see a new generation of immigrants, whether from Syria or Somalia, Mexico City or Mumbai, as not so different from the families we came from. Thank you for allowing me to share my family's Detroit story.